magazine, and how can you start with the Wyndford news when the first photograph isn't even of the Wyndford?
Or people who live here.
Absolutely not, and no one that's affected by anything that's going on here. In fact, what you've got here is them promoting their falsehoods to people out with the community and making it look like support and garnered power.
Yeah.
Right, so we're just sitting here discussing this Wyndford newsletter that's gone out last week from the Wheatley group, and on page 4 to 5 you've got a whole series of your questions about the demolition of the high flats and potentially the hub, your questions answered, and we've still got a lot of questions that haven't been answered because there aren't really many answers here. For example, when will we find out about the plans for the regeneration? Not until 2024, so there's a big question mark over the whole thing until then. The next question, what is the Wyndford Future Focus Group and who can join? We invited tenants to get in part. Well, not all tenants, you didn't send letters to every tenant, you specifically selected which tenants, and when other tenants tried to turn up, like yourself, Sean, we were told not to come in and that we weren't to be included. So you've not answered the question, how do you get involved in taking part in the decision making?
And on that point, I just find it ironic that it says hands up who's getting involved, because neither of us, we did try to get involved, we did turn up, but the time of the meeting was changed deliberately to avoid certain people like us who might have an alternative view about what's best for Wyndford actually turning up. So you're right, they don't answer what is the Wyndford Futures Focus Group, and we don't know what it is because we've been banned from being part of it. But according to this, it has quite a stake in deciding what happens. So there's more questions and answers, like you say, in particular, why and who has been handpicked for this, and what are they getting out yet? Because we know that people were given like Tesco vouchers and that to go in, and they came out saying everything that they wanted them to say. And they knew that obviously we wouldn't come out just speaking the party line of the Wheatley group, and that's why we were banned for entering. So the questions haven't been answered.
Then on that subject, I might as well mention the fact that day one we were stopped from entering the meeting. Lindsay Head came out herself and told us that we weren't welcome to participate, even tenants that were present that day. On day two, one of our local neighbours who's friendly to Wheatley group and in favour of the demolition was positioned outside Nick's flat watching his front door from 4:30 onwards to make sure that he didn't attend that meeting, and I've never seen her sitting out there before or since. So not only have Wheatley Group got their own private police force that they're using to spy on the tenants union, they're also potentially paying residents to spy on their neighbours, which is not exactly promoting community cohesion and a friendly environment for people to live in. So I don't know what they're playing at there. They've also then gone on to say that is it not better to retrofit the flats than demolish them? Studies by leading architects and structural engineers have shown that retrofitting the homes and trying to make them into larger flats would compromise the structural integrity and stability of the buildings. That is a lie. We know that's a lie. Anybody that's read Malcolm Fraser's report in praise of sturdy buildings knows that it's a lie. But also, if you read Wheatley's own report that they commissioned, the Balfour report, it doesn't say anywhere in that report that it would compromise the structural integrity of the building. So that's just a blatant lie. Are you making a profit from the sale of the land after demolition? No, because the land will not be sold to private developers. They'll be making a ton of money off the new rental income. That's the whole reason for demolishing the high flats, to replace them with more expensive properties. So it's absolutely about making profit. Why are you demolishing for multi-stories in a homelessness crisis? Here they're boasting about the fact that they provided 13 homes to homeless people and families across Glasgow, but as Kaz was saying before, they've not said what kind of tenure that is, so not all of those are social housing.
And they've also stated in this that the blocks are no longer fit for purpose. We currently have people living in those flats right now, paying rent, One of their other excuses is they're unpopular and they don't get allocated. Well, why does it take them so long to empty them? They were absolutely full. So it's not that they're no longer fit for purpose, it's they've been left and neglected and the tenants in them were left unserved. And so again, that's just another falsehood and an absolute blatant lie, and this changes newspaper to newspaper, whatever article they're doing, they change why they're doing this.
My concern with that as well is the blocks are no longer fit for purpose. To whose mind, like, according to who measures this? My worry is that what they're saying is the people inside them were no longer the type of, or the class of person that we wanted to live. That this master plan is going to have living in Wyndford, because there's no quote, and I've never heard for a tenant saying this block's unfit for purpose, but I've seen inside people's houses and they've looked better than my house. So who are they to tell us that they block's unfit for purpose?
And
Pepper's been on long enough.
energy band efficiency C, the majority of Wheatley's housing stock is D, E and F. So why are we taking something for a C that needs demolished when there's D, E and F that are still fit for purpose within their stock?
There's also the interesting claim that the mid-market rents will start... Well, no, it doesn't. It says mid-market rents start at $435 a month. They're obviously trying to give us the impression with that statement that there will actually be properties in the Wyndford that are getting built that will be starting at $435 a month. That's nowhere near accurate.
But critically, mid-market rent is based on 80% of the market rent in an area. So if the market rent here is £2,100 for taking one of these family-sized homes and turn them into box rooms, up to a ceiling of £900, then you're going to get £900.
Yeah.
And then there's just there's just like a running theme throughout it is their inability to answer straight questions. We know that when we ask them questions they just hide, but it's quite impressive that they've been unable to answer straight questions that they've put to themselves. So for example, let me see, what's the last one? Will I have to leave my home for the blocks to be demolished? You'll be able to carry on as normal while safety and prepare the blocks for demolition. On the day of the blowdown, we may need some residents to vacate their homes for a few hours. The answer is yes. Like, there is no way that building meters away from this, that I could be here while that's raised to the ground. And they've got nothing to lose by just saying, aye, there will be an inconvenience. There's no way that you're going to raise 600 homes to the ground, 4 26-storey blocks, and it's not going to be inconvenient for people. But they just don't have that basic, like, honesty of just saying, look, aye, this has got to take a bit of your time up. It's going to be inconvenient for a while, but it's going to be better, so it's worth it. They don't even have it in them to say that, because they can't promise that it's going to be worth it, because they don't know if it will be.
It's clear this is a glossary version, because we have been contacted to be told that up to 400 households will be evacuated on the morning of the demolition, and we will be brought back in that night again, and we're getting moved to an evacuation centre. I'd like to know where that evacuation centre is and how they're going to meet the needs of every single family in that day, especially the kids and people at school and work. And then what they're going to do about the toxic dust that's going to be absolute in its highest point and bringing families into that. And the other thing that comes for that is we already have problems with the gutters getting blocked and people having floods and the downpipes right into their homes. Look at people sitting with wrecked ceilings and wrecked walls. That's going to be toxic dust going into people's homes and walls. So it's like a very knowledgeable but careless act.
Mm.
And they know that because that was in their own residual risks document that they tried to hide from us. So I mean, this is contradicting their own data, their own information.
Yeah. this is a glossed over, everything's going to be alright, don't ask any questions version, which is pretty much how they've treated the majority of the households, because they 1400 surveys did not go out to those households. It was so minimum, and we know that that wasn't decided by the whole community.
Well, they've stopped using that 83% statistic now. They're not trying to claim that anymore because I think it's clear that that consultation was not, you know,
Not at all.
Exactly. There's also this nonsense that they've decided, apparently Wheatley has decided that embodied carbon is just not a thing. They're explaining this to us as if we're complete idiots. Embodied carbon is the amount of carbon emitted during the construction of a building. These emissions already happened, according to Wheatley, in the 1960s. They're not the same thing as CO2 emissions, which are what is harming the planet. Well, this is nonsense. If you talk to anybody, I mean, our own government, nobody would dare to say something this ridiculous because they know that that's not the case. That's why everybody is at least claiming that they're pushing for retrofit and a mass programme of retrofitting and refurbishing buildings in Scotland instead of demolishing them and building anew, because that has catastrophic implications in terms of carbon release and in terms of the environmental impacts the demolitions have. Which again, SafeDem don't think is an issue, to the point that they don't even need to carry out impact assessments. So all of this is just, it's like just a shrug. It's just SafeDem and Wheatley and the council just giving a collective shrug to the whole thing and all of the concerns that we've raised as a community.
I think it's worth explaining the embodied carbon thing, just actually what it is and why that statement is a lie.
An architect to do that.
So the issue is that it's CO2 that has been emitted in the atmosphere already.
Yeah, but rebuilding means doing that all over again.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You kind of touched on it, but I would beef it up.
Sorry. Rather than doing all of that and producing the same amount of emissions again, reuse existing buildings, refurbish them, make them usable at, you know, lower cost to the taxpayer, and also just lower cost to the environment, which is something we need to start treating as a priority. But then you touched on, Kaz, as well, the fact that the demolition is likely to cause damage to other buildings in Wyndford.
Yeah.
And one of those is, of course, the hub, which they're currently trying to tell us is not set to be demolished, but, well, it seems like they've possibly got plans for it.
Yeah, I mean, this has been kept very close to their chest. They're very much keeping people hanging on the edge, and a lot of false promises and vague, evasive answers. So, yes, the hub could be demolished and housing put there. Yes, the hub could be relocated. Yes, there is an asbestos survey getting done on the building of the hub. And yes, the hub might be too expensive to refurb, and they're still spending on repairs just now on the hub. So I think they're still trying to check out how viable the hub is, because it's a rich piece of land since finding you can't build over where Scottish Water have their tank at the side of the flats. I believe they kind of have a stronger idea of what they're going to do, and they just refuse to put any concrete down. I believe they're feeding off the falsehood that they'll be guaranteed a new club hut before the demolitions went ahead, and even if the demolition went ahead, they could safely take that down without it disturbing the hub or anyone getting in there, all of which is completely ridiculous. It is so hazardous, and it is so uncertain, absolute uncertainty. Every talk and so-called consultation they've had has been a loose discussion. They've took the answers back to private and they've still got no answers. There's still been no wider survey of all the hub users and the wider community that supports the hub. And as far as I'm aware, there's been very little invested in the hub to upgrade it. but the cost of the repairs from it not being upgraded is getting taken out the income that the hub is making. So for me, it's a consistent downgrading and disruption of the hub and its attendees bit by bit, and the many service users. And I think they've got a get out of jail free card to not spend a lot or any money building a new hub, but find another building locally owned by the council to maybe transfer. So again, it's a major withdrawal from the community that the community did not vote or have a say in.
What about the swing park and the demolition of 120?
That goes hand in hand. This 150 metre exclusion zone, it's normally a 200 metre exclusion zone actually when there's trail igniting going on. But it's been reduced to 150, and I think that again, with local houses in front, adjacent, both sides, is a deliberate carelessness to cause further deterioration to other properties in the Wyndford. 120 is the catalyst of freeing up a lot of other ground without taking any professional stand on protecting it properly from the start.
Do you think then that the demolition of 120 will be used, to use the phrase, as a catalyst
Absolutely.
to shut the hub?
Absolutely. And to take away a lot more green space and play space from the community. So again, the community is getting robbed on so many levels, and 120 is 120 is the absolute centre of the start of that. And the risk to homes and people selling up their homes and moving out and becoming ill, seriously ill, and deteriorating in health is absolutely vast, and I think they're banking on exactly that.
Okay. So, you talked a wee bit about how this is all lies, but it kind of starts with a lie on the front page, isn't it, with the pictures of the Waynes? Maybe if you say a thing about that.
Yeah, well, that was another thing that really bothered me about the Future Focus Group, was that there was actually representatives at those meetings, who were on the board of management of schools outside of this area. So, I mean, why are there people who run schools outside of the Wyndford that are making decisions about what happens?
And not in the school catchment area.
Well, exactly.
And this is not our land on the front, and not our
That's
kids.
not the Wyndford.
No
That's
one's
not
from the
Wyndford.
Wyndford, and
they're getting kids
not
from all over the
property.
city to put on art in the Wyndford. So that's great, but we've got the G20, we've got the hub. Like, you could actually get some Wyndford kids to do it if you wanted to.
It's going back to that sensationalising demolition and glossing over it and trying to empower them with the people who won't be affected by it, who won't be disrupted, who won't have ill and deteriorated health, who won't be forced to move out from such a brutal and careless plan.
And it's that word, like, it is, they're trying to make a spectacle of it, which shows they've not learned anything from Red Road, because the plan back then was to demolish them live on telly for the opening ceremony of the Commonwealth Games, and there was a pushback on that to say no, that's actually quite insulting to the people that are in, because there was still people occupying a couple of them. It was like, we don't think that's really the right way to go about this, do you know what I mean? Pulling people's horses down as if it's a laugh and what's shown after the world. What really, because there was no ambition about it. The place there is still a building site over a decade later, and the only thing that's stopping Wyndford from being a building site for the next decade is our proximity to the West End. So Springburn's been let to rot, and that's unfair for them, but it'll be a swifter job here because like they're saying, how lucrative the land is and the classy people that they want to bring in. So again,
the massive lie is a £73 million investment in the Wyndford. It's not, it's destruction of the Wyndford, and the money left over for the demolition is to pave way for the people, for the new car parks, which is further disruption to other parts of the estate. And this is all to appease and house these new family properties that are going to be out with social renters, financial.
Well, there's also, on that, in their own newsletter where they're trying to assuage all of our fears, they've accidentally or on purpose given themselves an extra £6 million. So they said that the 73 million and the 60 million is to go on the new homes with 13 million on other improvements. The original cost of demolition is supposed to be 54 million. So where's this extra 6 million come from?
That's right, because we had the argument 55 million to retrofit, so we went to 54, so it is now a deficit of 5 million more expensive to destroy our green space, our community, and endanger people's health, when before we thought it was a £1 million fight.
Aye, so the figures are jumping left, right and centre. So why should I then believe them when they ask themselves, will the demolition release hazardous substances into the air? No. Safe Dem will survey the block to identify any hazardous materials. Those materials will then be safely removed. Why should we believe that? Do you know what I mean?
Well, we were already told they're only going to remove the visible asbestos.
Right.
And the cost of that, and now we're finding out that the hub's getting an asbestos survey. So if we can't damage one without the other, then just how much asbestos are we looking at, and just how much it costs? Multiplying are we looking at? So, and this is all who's going to pay for this? The taxpayers, the people. Who's going to be most uprooted and affected by it? The most vulnerable and the most unfinancially stable in our community.
Yeah. Well, finally, there's that 99% of tenants that have already been moved and offered homes in an area of their choice. When we know that people have moved to areas that were not of their choice, that they were threatened, that they were repeatedly visited, that we were leaving cards through the door, phoning them, telling them that they did not have a choice but to accept flats, often in areas that they didn't want to live in.
We still have residents of the 10% that's left between the last 3 blocks who are actually under the service of a possession warrant because they've refused to take any of those houses. And this gets threatened, and then they get a house offer, and if they take it, that gets removed because they've got their goal very quickly. And if they don't, that goes on. Now that takes 6 months to get to court, and the way they're nailing down a block at a time right now is how they're targeting people. Isolated these steel doors. We even had points where people who hadn't moved out almost got steel doors put in their houses. Yes. So it's very one-sided, and the whole point of view on this is what Wheatley and the private developers want.
Mm-hmm. You talk about not fit for purpose and the offers that people have been getting. I know a particular high flat tenant who just got forced out 2 weeks ago or something. His third or fourth offer was somewhere in Wyndford, and he did hold out for that because he's lived here for 20-30 years. But his first 2 were not fit for purpose. Like his house in the high flats was well furnished, it was nicer than mine. But the houses he was getting offered, they showed me a video of one that he got offered in Kalina Street, and as soon as he walked in there was cockroaches on the floor. So how is his perfectly furnished house in the Wyndford high flats not fit for purpose, but yet he's supposed to accept living with beasties in his house? So to be fair to him, he held out and says no, that's unacceptable. And had to do that another couple of times at much inconvenience.
And this statement here is they're going on and promoting how it's so good, it's environmental upgrades and a new concierge station. We're losing a lot of concierge, people are losing their jobs to the point where they're getting put out on other contracts, and if they don't take them then they will have no jobs. So that's a threat to them. And then this man Bill, who seems to think that the regeneration plans are very important for everyone in the Wyndford. Bill is one person in one state of life and has absolutely no idea just how destructive and dangerous this demolition is, personally myself and my family and my young son's in serious danger, and I would have to move out. And I can't afford the rents that are around me to stay in the same position to where my family's became established here. So to take this tiny selected focus group who feel that the plans suit them, they do not speak for the implications that affect every other member, age and medical needs and social needs of the rest of this wider community.
And you're talking about the job losses. So that's what we're saying. We're getting a lot of promises in here about safe them and Wheatley. Just a thought. The safe them and Wheatley will bring job opportunities to the community. But you're talking about the actual job losses that have already happened. Likewise, regardless of how they dress this up, it's a real terms cut to social housing. That's the one fact that we cannot deny. So we're seeing cuts to housing, cuts to jobs,
local workforce.
That's the fact of the matter. And our decline in living conditions, that's decline in working conditions for the next team and the frontline staff of Wheatley. So it is a class issue. It's about housing, it's also just about quality of life. And we've had broken promises after broken promises, so why should we believe a word that they say? I believe my neighbours.
So this document is a lot of mistruths, half-truths and elisions. And it's, the front page starts with pictures of children who have nothing to do with the publication or the project that it's talking about.
Yeah.
But it's fair to say this wasn't produced by housing officers. This isn't a housing management document. It's not a...
Oh, it's a marketing magazine, and how can you start with the Wyndford news when the first photograph isn't even of the Wyndford?
Or people who live here.
Absolutely not, and no one that's affected by anything that's going on here. In fact, what you've got here is them promoting their falsehoods to people out with the community and making it look like support and garnered power.
Yeah.
It'd be like us making a newsletter about the West End, something that we're no fae, that we know nothing about. And then sometimes the community union gets criticised because we have support right across Glasgow for saving these flats. And the question, the question ever gets put to them. Lindsay Hagan, the locality housing director, Stephen Henderson, the Wheatley Group CEO, everybody with the decision-making power over Wyndford, none of them live here. So why is it one rule for them and another for us?
There's not one photo of a family in here. Not one photo of anybody, or one statement or question, even a question and answer from anybody else in the community and how it would affect them. The select few that will be least affected by it and that will be given gift vouchers and patted on the back for helping secure danger and devastation to millions of homeowners, families and social tenants living in the Wyndford as it currently stands right now. And the access to the green space is massive for a lot of people that have got limited mobility and mental health, and some of our previous tenants that have been moved on because they had no choice to stay in their own flat. That's getting cut off, so that the Kelvin walkway is going to get cut off. It's not worth the paper it's written on. Absolute lies and propaganda.
Consider them demolished.